Dali, Hussain, or Odour of Dream, Color of Wind, by Thangjam Ibopishak Singh is a dream sequence. In this poem, the representation of the ideas refers to that the poet was disturbed as well as in a delirious state. He was clinging between wakefulness and sleeping. However, what he saw in the dream isn't totally absurd. The representation may seem absurd, but there is a connection between the lines. There is also a significance behind choosing this style. After referring to the political situation of the northeast states of India such as Manipur and Nagaland, it becomes clear the poet might be disturbed by such an ongoing pandemonium outside. Ibopishak's poetry is a dense and textured construct. Images yield new resonances at successive readings. And so in his poem, Dali, Hussain, or Odour of Dream, Color of Wind, the poet whips up a playful and memorable mix of the lyrical, the fantastic and the deliriously associative, with the familiar undertow of black humor. Thangjam Ibopishak Singh is among the leading and most popular poets of the northeast of India. Based in Imphal, he writes in Manipuri, the language of the indigenous Meitei community. He has published 6 volumes of poetry, 3 of which earned him some of the most prestigious awards in the state, including the Manipur State Kala Akademi Award in 1986, the Jamini Sundar Guha Gold Medal in 1989, the first Jananetta Irabat Award in 1997 and the Ashangbam Meenaketan Memorial Award in 2005. Ibopishak also won the Sahitya Akademi Award for Poetry in 1997. He teaches Manipuri at the GP Women's College in Imphal. Dali, Hussain, or Odour of Dream, Colourofwind. My uncle from Wangu asked me, how many bushels of paddy have you stored for this season? I asked my friend Kesho again. How many kgsofpoems have you written for this month? Write and then tear up, write and then tear up. A cashier counts old 1 rupee notes. A rotten, moldy bundle of notes. 1,700. Only 11. Spending 1 hour 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Then after the final count, washing his hands clean with Dettol. He eats up the notes, one by one. 2. True, the poet says. Leaves do not move without a fleeting wind. True, I also say. Even if the wind blows or not, even if it rains or not. Leaves never move. If there are no leaves. One bare tree. 3. One knows man's thoughts from his speech. As for the mind's words of a tight-lipped man, one can read them from his eyes. That is why to conceal my mind, I put on dark glasses. Again, so that even the glasses cannot read. I keep my 2 eyes shut. Men who close their eyes can be seen inside a lockup. Or inside a sacred temple. I've never seen fish flying in the sky. But I often saw ducks floating on water. You say, you are wrong. I say, I am wrong. The Vedas say, in Brahma lies 0. You also say, and I too declare, what they call, you, is never me. IV. Which is more fragrant? The report of guns or the scent of flowers? The sound of guns lies on the nose. The odor of flowers on the tips of flowers. Blind men see colors on voices. A love letter. A horoscope of my grandfather. A radio which belongs to our mother. A pair of tweezers of my son. 10 bottles of rum flying in air. 1 brazier which belongs to my grandmother. A pair of lingams. A bird carrying a bunch of keys in its beak. 1 whistle. 2 butterflies. A cake of soap. A Shakespearean sonnet. A pair of clogs. Tied up by women's hair. What's left? Add some of your own. An egg. Sinks slowly. Slowly, very slowly. Piercing my sleeping teenage daughter's hairless pate. Then her 2 ears move lazily. V. One day, wanting to own a peepal tree, I climbed atop a rich man's tall building, and, entering his bathroom, looked for one. I like peepal trees very much. I would like to see every citizen of Imphal walking with a small peepal tree growing on his head. Then inside that bathroom, I found my wife leaning. Half her body, waist above turning into a peepal. Waist below her body without clothes. I was not surprised. I was not worried. I did not cry. Gurish Karnad. My wife metamorphosed into your Cheluvi. How can I claim now that I like people trees? Dali, Hussain, or Odour of Dream, Color of Wind, by Thangjam. Ibopishak Singh begins as absurdly as it ends. Likewise, in the first stanza, the poetic persona refers to two different questions, one about the yield and another about the number of poems. Thereafter, the persona sees someone counting a bundle of 1 rupee notes in his dream vision. Surprisingly, the cashier eats up the notes. Moreover, in the following stanza, the poet refers to a maxim said by a poet. In the next stanza, the poet asserts his individualism and nonconformist attitude towards society. The fourth stanza is undoubtedly similar to the previous sections. Here, the poet talks about the sound of the gun alongside the scent of flowers. Thereafter, introducing a bunch of images, the poem moves to the ironical reference to the sacred peepal tree. At last, there is a reference to the metamorphosis of the poet's wife. Dali, Hussain, or Odour of Dream, Color of Wind, by Thangjam. Ibopishak Singh begins as absurdly as it ends. Likewise, in the first stanza, the poetic persona refers to two different questions, one about the yield and another about the number of poems. Thereafter, the persona sees someone counting a bundle of 1 rupee notes in his dream vision. Surprisingly, the cashier eats up the notes. Moreover, in the following stanza, the poet refers to a maxim said by a poet. In the next stanza, the poet asserts his individualism and nonconformist attitude towards society. The fourth stanza is undoubtedly similar to the previous sections. Here, the poet talks about the sound of the gun alongside the scent of flowers. Thereafter, introducing a bunch of images, the poem moves to the ironical reference to the sacred peepal tree. At last, there is a reference to the metamorphosis of the poet's wife. Summary. Dali, Hussain, or Odour of Dream, Color of Wind, by Thangjam. Ibopishak Singh begins with two contrasting ideas. At first, the speaker refers to the question of his uncle. He asked him how many bushels of paddy he had stored for the season. Thereafter, using the same sequence, he asked his friend Kesho how many kilograms of poems he had written for the month. In this way, the poet compares a farmer's production to poetry. A poet and a farmer both count on their production for their sustenance. In this section of Dali, Hussain, or Odour of Dream, Color of Wind, by Thangjam. Ibopishak Singh, there is an epigram. The poet metaphorically refers to the leaves as poetry, and the fleeting wind as poetic inspiration. Here, he paradoxically refers to the situation when he was writing this poem. There was nothing that could give poetic inspiration to him. The tree, symbolically representing the society, was bare due to the worsening situation. Dali, Hussain, or Odour of Dream, Color of Wind, by Thangjam. Ibopishak Singh presents a thought-provoking epigram at the beginning of the third section. The poet says one can easily decode one's thoughts from the way he speaks, while in the case of an inexpressive person, one can read his mind through his eyes. The poet is tight-lipped. To hide his eyes, he uses dark glasses. Even if the dark glasses fail to stop one from reading his mind, he feels it safe to close his eyes to the world. Being truthful to society always brought a writer an intolerable response. So, the poet thinks it is better not to express what's in his mind. Moreover, the poet sarcastically remarks one can find men with their eyes closed either inside a lockup or in a sacred temple. Juxtaposing such ideas naturally connects the inner sense. And, connecting the inner sense brings about the ironic effect. Comparison between a criminal and a deity not only welcomes a comic effect but also shows how religious strife prevalent in India disturbs the poet. Thereafter, in Dali, Hussain, or Odour of Dream, Color of Wind, Thangjam Singh presents the difference between reality and imagination. The poet is realistic and he expresses it in the following manner: I've never seen fish flying in the sky, but I often saw ducks floating on water. Mentioning of the sacred temple in the previous stanza, and remarking humorously about fish flying in the sky, gets connected interestingly. Religion always talks about such imaginary things that have no veracity. And, here, the poet mocks such ideas that somehow deviate people from reality. A nonconformist knows his ideas can't find listeners in a pragmatic society. So, the poet admits he is wrong and says, in Brahma lies zero. It symbolically refers to the hollowness of the religion as a whole. However, at the end of this stanza, the poet says how society wants him to see, he can't be like that. He is different and will be adhered to his ideologies no matter what. Stanza 4 of Dali, Hussain, or Odour of Dream, Color of Wind, presents a comparison to the readers and asks which one is more fragrant, the report of guns or the scent of flowers. According to the poet, the sound of guns lies on the nose, whereas the fragrance of flowers lies on the tips of flowers. Blind men visualize colors on the voices. In this way, the poet presents the contrast between war and peace. And at last remarks about the blindness of those walk and see the beauty of life. Those cruel minds only find satisfaction in the redness of blood and the doomed blast of guns. Dali, Hussain, or Odour of Dream, Color of Wind, by Thangjam Ibopishak Singh presents a chain of images that appears in the poet's mind. Here, he uses the stream of consciousness technique to reflect how disturbed his mind is. The poet can see a love letter alongside the horoscope of his grandfather. Suddenly an old radio of his mother appears with a pair of tweezers of his son. Moreover, the poet visualizes 10 bottles of rum flying in the air in a brazier of his grandmother. Even in this long stanza, the poet doesn't spare religion. The reference to a pair of lingams, representing Lord Shiva alongside the brazier of his grandmother presents dark humor. Apart from that, the poet sees a bird carrying a bunch of keys in its beak, a whistle, 2 butterflies, and a cake of soap. Then appears a Shakespearean sonnet and a pair of clogs tied up by women's hair. Thereafter the poet says to add what a reader wishes to add in this sequence of absurd thought processes. At last, the poet presents disturbing imagery. He sees an egg sinking very slowly into the head of his sleeping teenage daughter's hairless plate. It doesn't cause pain to his daughter. She only moves her 2 ears lazily as if nothing has happened with her. In the last stanza of Dali, Hussain, or Odour of Dream, Color of Wind, by Thangjam Ibopishak Singh, the poet humorously presents another visual imagery from his dream vision. One day he climbed atop a rich man's tall building and entered his bathroom in search of a peepal tree. The poet says, he did that as he likes peepal trees just like other citizens of Imphal. Thereafter, he ironically refers that the people adore the peepal tree so much. If they could, they should grow a small peepal tree on their heads. After entering the bathroom of the rich man's building mentioned previously, the poet found his wife surprisingly leaning there. Half of her body was naked and the rest portion turned into a peepal tree. This description is exactly similar to what one sees in a dream. In a dream, one's mind connects the ideas loosely and forms an unending story that only ends when the person wakes up. The poet was also dreaming. Moreover, the poet says he was neither surprised nor worried after seeing his wife in that awkward form. Thereafter, the poet refers to the film, Cheluvi, directed by Girish Karnad. This film was based on a folk tale of Karnataka. Cheluvi was a girl who turned into a flowering tree. Like Cheluvi, the poet's wife also metamorphosed into a peepal tree. At last, the poet says after seeing his wife in another man's bathroom, how can he claim her as his wife? Moreover, the poet says he dislikes the peepal tree as his wife transformed into the tree. Source credit. https://www.poetry-international.com/n/poems/poem/poem/10363141_Dali-Hussain-or-Odour-of-Wind. https://poemanalysis.com/thangjam-ibopishak-sing/Dali-Hussain-or-Odour-of-dream-color-off-wind/.